Welcome to Biz Wire. I'm Joseph Nordstrom in Beijing. Inflation is on the minds of China's leaders as they head into this weekend's important government meeting of the Central Committee. Economist and Premier of China, Li Keqiang, has warned against printing more money as an unsustainable stimulus to the economy that would likely push up consumer prices. Besides inflation, leaders are worried about the quickly accumulating debts of government offices outside the capital. The premier said in late October that M2, the broader measure of the money supply in China, exceeded the equivalent of $16 trillion at the end of March, about double the nation's gross domestic product. Li said there's already, quote, too much money in the pool, and warned that hyperinflation could sabotage markets and create panic among the public as well. Chinese state-controlled media has run countless stories criticizing the United States and, in the past year, Japan about printing money. So it's interesting to see outlets like the patriotic paper China Youth Daily also discuss the harmful effects of China's increased money supply. In the past decade, the RMB has appreciated about 30% against the U.S. dollar, but due to inflation can only buy half the amount of goods. Consumer price inflation ticked up to an official 3.1% in September, still well within the official 3.5% target, but the second highest figure in a year. After the 2008 global financial crisis, the national and local governments in China spent massive amounts on fixed asset investment projects to help keep employment up and stimulate demand. This has left provincial, city, and county level governments burdened with a huge debt that is still being accounted for. Premier Li says this kind of spending is not a long-term answer to sustainable economic growth and needs to be curtailed. A short-term stimulus to prop up economic growth by enlarging fiscal deficits and the money supply has added to the government's deficit, which is now topped by official estimates 2.1% of GDP. The premier pointed to the EU's Growth and Stability Pact rules that say deficits of its member states must not exceed 3% of GDP. Li acknowledged that the Chinese economy is facing downward pressures from complicated situations, both home and abroad, as the country's GDP growth has slowed to 7.5% in the second quarter, compared with the double-digit growth in 2010. The premier said that maintaining GDP growth is mostly about holding up employment, adding 1.3 to 1.5 million jobs could be created for every 1% growth in GDP. Li suggested the government stick to the current fiscal deficit level without loosening or tightening up money supplies, while improving government efficiency and cutting expenses. The premier also vowed to support the service sector and narrow down the gap between the relatively prosperous East and less developed West. In line with what Li Keqiang has been saying, China's central bank has recently shown signs of moving towards tighter monetary policy, motivated by rising inflation and housing prices, as well as renewed capital inflows. You're watching Biz Wire on the Blue Ocean Network, China's first and only privately owned broadcast media. All of our stories can be seen on our website, BONTV/biz-wire. In just a second, we'll continue with more insight into the big picture of China's economy.